Hello ladies and gents, boys and girls, people of all ages, sexualities and identities, and welcome back to another Doctor Who review. And today's Doctor Who review is none other than the Masque of Mandragara. Yeah, Tom Baker's back. So, the Masque of Mandragara. What is the Masque of Mandragora about? Well, the Doctor and Sarah land in prehistoric England, and it turns out that some sort of meteorite has crash landed and is giving people power beyond comprehension. A cult has assembled, and they're trying to align the stars so that Mandragora can finally return to the Earth. So, from what I gather in this story, essentially Mandragora is a kind of god/celestial being, and essentially by it coming into alignment with Earth, it can essentially give a human being the power of a god. But for all of this to happen, Sarah Jane Smith must be sacrificed to Mandragora. So she's kidnapped by the cult, and the Doctor goes into the town to go and talk to the Count to essentially plead for some help to stop Mandragora once and for all. However, the Count doesn't quite believe that Mandragora really exists. He doesn't even believe the cult has any plausible power. So as far as he's concerned, he thinks that him and his men can just overrule the cult. But when he soon sees the extent of how far the cult's power has begun to grow, he enlists in the Doctor to finally put Mandragora to bed once and for all. The Doctor manages to succeed with this, and just to wind everyone up, he decides to dress up as Mandragora just to essentially go, and I wouldn't even say no to a salami sandwich. Yeah, it's rather silly at the ending, but there's a lot of great twists and turns throughout this story. So what do I give the Masque of Mandragora out of 10? Well, for story, I definitely give it this strong head leap with the way that it's produced. However, I do feel like there's a couple shortcomings in this story. For instance, the Doctor running around the forest for hours and hours and hours in the story definitely does start to drag the story about. I also feel like a few of the cult scenes could have been condensed a little bit, but that's just my personal opinion. However, the plot and the power, I do love when Doctor Who starts to go into the line of the occult and begins to look into powers, whether it's celestial powers, godlike powers, and most importantly, I love how it looks into mythology. The Masque of Mandragora definitely gives me Devil's End sort of vibes, and it's interesting to have someone else as the dark protagonist, even the person being someone's alchemist in this story, rather than necessarily just going for where within the past had the Master. Now, of course, this is not to say that the Master wouldn't have absolutely shone in this story, but I definitely feel like by having this luminous kind of figure who we don't know who's behind the mask for half of the story, I think is brilliant. And for that reason, I give it a solid 7 out of 10. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next Doctor Who review. Until then, stay beautiful and have an incredible night, you beautiful people.